Hello, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Your meeting minutes from November 19th are being emailed out right now. So you can give them a quick look before we discuss. While we're doing that, we'll call to order the December 17th meeting of the Design Review Board. Thank you. And we'll start with introductions, starting with Cameron.
Cameron Bolin, AIA representative.
Rick Blackburn, Historic Zoning Commission.
Lisa Sear Burnett, Business Development Representative.
Sarah Martin, Urban Design Representative.
Matthew DeBard-Laban, Downtown Knoxville Alliance.
Laura Wen, Downtown Residential.
Tony Allen, Downtown Business and Development Representative.
Jared Worsham, Downtown Resident Representative.
Suzanne Taravella, Neighborhood Representative.
Dallas D. Armand, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Samuel Huck, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Melinda Woolert, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Mike Reynolds, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Mark Reel, City of Knoxville Plans Review and Inspections.
Okay, thank you, everybody. The minutes are in your packet and should have been emailed out. And once you have a chance to review, we'll entertain a motion to accept unless there are any revisions.
I move to accept the minutes as emailed.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are accepted. And from there, we'll move on to the staff report.
Right, since the last meeting, we had one level 1 COA issued. It was for a plat over on Menders Avenue. They're just wanting to combine the lots of record to reflect the tax parcel boundaries. This is a historic industrial property that has never had residential uses.
Okay, from there, we'll have the certificates of appropriateness. And we will start with 612 South Gay Street, which is case 12A25DT.
This request is for an illuminated projecting sign for Mechanics Bank and Trust Company building, which is listed in the National Register of Historic Places and is a contributing structure to the Gay Street Commercial Historic District. The 2 feet 6 inch wide and 3 feet 4 inch tall sign will be installed on the leftmost column of the main floor, 13 feet 8 inch above the sidewalk. The double face sign features a push-through logo and letters displaying the theater's name. The plan includes a placeholder text for the name of the theater. The sign has internal LED illumination as well as static, non-chasing exposed LED bulbs installed on the top of the aluminum channel around the sign face. The 8.33 square feet sign adheres to the recommended maximum sign area of 9 square feet and is proportional to the building where it will be installed. On Gay Street, internal illumination has been approved on a case-by-case basis by the board in instances where illumination is limited to push-through letters or individual elements on a sign. Here, internal illumination will be limited to the acrylic logo and the letters. Overall, the plan meets the design guidelines. The plan notes that the exact number and spacing of the exposed static bulbs will be determined by the manufacturer during the production phase. This shall be verified before a permit is issued. Staff recommends approval of Certificate 12A25DT subject to one condition. Submit final plans including the number and spacing of the exposed LED bulbs and the acrylic letters displaying the name of the theater for review and approval by planning staff.
Thank you, Samuel. Is the applicant present? Yes. Please do. Thank you.
There's a little person button on there.
There he is. Hello, how about now?
Perfect.
Okay, great, thanks.
Well, we appreciate your recommendation for approval. As you can see, this sign is kind of a cute little baby cousin of the Tennessee Theater sign. This is the property that you've probably seen in the media that was purchased by the theater 2 doors down and is to be connected in the rear of this building to the theater auditorium. So there is a connection on the upper floors to the theater itself, but the entrance from Gay Street that you see identified here is a separate small private and sometimes public venue that relates to the Tennessee Theater. So that's why you see a lot of similarities to the theater, but the scale is much diminished. We don't have chasing lights. It's not the star of the show like the big Tennessee Theater marquee sign. So we appreciate your consideration, and those details that you've asked for, we'd be happy to submit once we've got the shop drawings ready.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any comments from the board?
I think the only question I have is, how is the electrical going to be ran to this? Is it through the masonry, or what's that look like?
It is. The general contractor has in their scope of work to run a line right out where you see it on that image there. So it would be concealed by those connection points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will it be possible to, I'm looking at the 612 building, will it be possible to align the actual mounting penetration at mortar joints? It looks like with that plate connection, it might be about impossible to do that, to actually hit. Okay, I guess what I'm getting at is it's going to pierce the face of the existing stone that's there to actually mount it, correct?
It would mount such that, just like the illustration, it would go on the face of the stone. So
Right.
It wouldn't be straddling the joint.
Correct. It's actually preferable to hit a mortar joint, but I guess this building's not like brick masonry, so it's different. Is there an existing, are there existing sign holes there, or are you going to be putting new holes in the facade?
We'll be putting new holes in the facade. There's some other abandoned holes from different things in the past. So like what's there now there's no way to align with the old penetrations.
Right. We usually try to get, if there is the chance to do that, but this is also looking at more detail. This isn't like, these aren't even mortar joints between them. That's just concave
Right, it's limestone.
details. Yeah.
Right. There's undulations on that face. If you could look a little closer, you'd be able to see there's a few other blemishes here and there.
Yeah.
So if we were to ever remove that sign, we could repair those blemishes along with previous blemishes at the same time.
My only encouragement, which won't be a requirement necessarily, but if there was a way to mount those without the 4 holes per mounting plate, to where you're right now you have eight penetrations that you're putting in the limestone, that would be preferable if there would be a different way to actually mount that. I feel like that mounting bracket may be able to be diminished to 2 on the mounting plates, 2 per rather than 4 per the faceplate. 1 above, 1 below.
We could consider that. I can't make that promise. I think the 4 is a stable connection.
Understood.
You mentioned something about the lights. Are they flickering? Or are they?
No, the bulbs are static.
Okay.
And the backlighting is continuous.
Okay, that's preferable as to not compete.
Right.
Okay, if there's no other questions and concerns, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve per staff's recommendation.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have 210 East Jackson Avenue, which is case 12B25DT.
This request is for a new 6-story mixed-use structure on a vacant lot at 210 Jackson Avenue. The site is marked in red on the leftmost image. In 2024, the board approved a 7-story mixed-use structure and a 5-story mixed-use structure on the 2 properties to the north. You have seen this project on a workshop before. The use is a hotel with some retail space on the ground floor. The development fronts Jackson Avenue and has sidewalk connection from the street. It omits any vehicular connection through the site and prioritizes pedestrian safety by incorporating 2 crosswalks along Jackson Avenue, continuous sidewalks around the street, and pedestrian scale lighting around the building. The upper floors mainly contains the hotel rooms with a central lift core and 2 staircase for emergency exits. The massing of the building includes a clear pedestrian-oriented bottom. The flat roof modern building showcases a contrast between dark gray and light gray color palettes, featuring bays of rib pattern cladding between window bays. The front elevation is divided by a vertical wall with space for public mural art. The left section features dark concrete blocks and glass storefronts on the ground floor, dark gray brick between the second and fourth floor, and dark gray metal panels on the top 2 floors. The right section includes glass sections and wood slats on the ground floor, light gray brick on the middle section, and dark gray metal panels on the top floor. Shallow metal canopies are provided at the hotel's main entrance and retail storefronts. The same color palette continues along other elevations. The dark brick continues along part of the east elevation, while the light gray design extends along part of the west elevation. The rest of the building primarily rests on a foundation of dark concrete blocks with upper floors covered in white fiber cement board and battens. In this slide, you can see the lights that are proposed for this project around the building. Some of it will be visible from the public right-of-way and will enhance the visual appearance of this site. The landscape shows that some street trees are proposed along East Jackson Avenue, which needs to be coordinated with the city streetscape project for this site or for Old City in general. There is a patio for retail space on the northeast corner and another patio along the middle of the site for the hotel use. Overall, the hotel includes human scale sign and canopy over the proposed storefronts, which helps maintain a pedestrian scale environment for this project. The materials, the brick material mimics the nearby brick materials, although there are some contemporary materials proposed in this building, which is consistent with other 2 buildings that the board approved in 2024. There are several items that needs to be verified in the final plans before a building permit is issued. The biggest one is probably the TK District's design standard requirement for an entrance every 50 feet of building facade that abuts a public right-of-way. The ground floor shall incorporate an additional entrance between the hotel's main entrance and the westmost door of the retail spaces. Besides that, the proposed streetscape should align with the city's Old City streetscape project. Bike parking will be required per Article 11.9. The metal canopies on the ground floor and the storefront doors encroach into the public right-of-way. This needs further approval from the city and the engineering department. The light along the property line should not exceed 1 foot candle, and a photometric plan will be reviewed during permitting. Staff recommends approval of Certificate 12P25TT subject to the following conditions: meeting all applicable standards of the zoning ordinance on the final plan set, coordinating with the engineering department to implement the proposed streetscaping, and meeting all applicable requirements of the engineering department. And number 3, signage to return to the board as a separate application.
Great, thank you, Samuel. I think our applicants are on Zoom. Can you hear us? Hello?
Yes, this is John Halford speaking.
Great, can you give us your address, please?
Yes, 631 Madison Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to Samuel's comments?
No, we do not at this time. We're happy to answer questions and are open to discussion.
Great. Thank you. We'll open it up to the board for discussion then.
Is there a view included in the packet? Yeah, there it is. It's going to say from the courtyard. So what you'll see when you drive on the highway, it'll be the board and batten white material that's facing the road.
Yes, that view has a mix of masonry and this board and batten.
And I know we don't approve colors, but the white, I just feel like, especially the highway facing, is going to be pretty aged pretty poorly. Vertical board and batten, it'll be I'd say the special part and hard part about this project is it has two faces. So the facing up to the highway is as much as the front facade in some respect as the one on the street. So what are your comments on the white material over time? The board and batten, fiber cement.
Yep, so this, I understood from the James White Parkway, if you're traveling north, you'd be looking at this back elevation or the bottom left elevation of that previous sheet. Mm-hmm. And the board and batten color that we're selecting, we're trying to go away from a white or even it's a really a gray, like a medium gray to help cover up those. But to cover up any of that aging, as well as, of course, for the developer, maintaining, cleanliness and pressure washing schedule that would be appropriate to the ultimate exact coloration of the siding.
Are you married to the battens? Because there's something about the battens that remind me of some of the pretty terrible looking student housing projects on the other side of the Henley Street Bridge. And I think that's more of what I'm concerned about, are the horizontal battens between the windows and those just collecting dirt and kind of just, I guess, streaking over time. I feel like fiber cement's not great, but I appreciate you are using a lot of masonry on the street facade. But if you were to use it, is there a flush panel reveal or something like that may be a bit more forgiving with dirt and debris?
It could be an exploration. We would need to explore that with alongside with the contractor. As you know, the fiber cement board is hits a certain price point, but it's also a durable material. The detailing of it is certainly important. We've seen it detailed poorly, and so our specifications would maintain details that kept the water from building up, which is where you get the debris deposits and it starts to create streaking. I wouldn't say that we're dying on that hill. As you can see, there's a lot of other materials that are being used throughout the project's design.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you've done pretty well with the materials up until that point, and then it kind of dissolves. And I know that's a money thing. You're tracking around the rest of the building and thinking, how can you save money? But I think that needs to be considered as well. And the batten, in my opinion, is not successful right now. If it was to be a fiber cement, it would be better if the vertical panel with a regular reveal or something in between it instead of the batten strip. It looks like student housing with that, unfortunately, because there's precedent here that looks like that is student housing that has it. Is the wood slats in the materials, is that actual wood or is that faux wood on the ground level retail or the front of the storefront areas?
We're proposing actual wood. It'd be shiplap vertical, and so that would require, it is covered, and so we try not to make sure that it doesn't get exposed to the elements, and it is predominantly north facing, so we feel good about it being able to maintain its condition. Of course, it will have to have semi-regular maintenance.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging. The other material comment, or two other ones, is the masonry you're proposing full bed depth, or is it thin brick veneer?
It's full bed depth.
Okay. And finally, on materials, the ground level concrete masonry, I don't know that that's something that we can approve. That's outside of our guidelines to have that, unless someone corrects me. I know it's on the, I guess, northeast corner street face, but is that the predominant lower band before you get to the storefront?
Yes, sir. And I know you're very familiar with the burnished block look. So this is not just a raw exposed CMU block. This is a very upscale material. Once it's burnished and the aggregate is exposed, it looks almost like a terrazzo. We've used this material in many projects, and it feels like the most upscale material on the building, sitting next to the brick.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
But I know it could be a policy thing. I know that's been a tricky thing with policy in the past, because CMU block, in a lot of people's mind, they think of the gray, and so that gets, as a policy decision, gets put aside. Whereas some of that upscale burnished block is an expensive material, but also a very attractive material. We like to use it as a scaling mechanism. So you've got the larger scale units that are on the base, and that also and then the smaller scale units, which is the brick, that are stacked above those and color matched. So that's a design decision for us. Again, not a hill that we die on, but would certainly recommend considering that as a possible material to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that material before. It's I think with many of these, like that, for me at least, and I'll let others speak, but just the materiality. I mean, the massing and the scale of the project's fine. It's restrained. It's not over the top or anything. So I think the actual architecture is acceptable. I appreciate the retail storefronts on Jackson. I'm just really, what we always come down to is the materiality that's being used is really the sticking point. So that's why I'm asking so much about it. Another question I had is the lighting today being submitted for review and approval as well as the architecture? Sorry, as well as the design?
Yes, we are submitting it. We are submitting or resubmitting the signage, or submitting that as a separate package. There will likely be an updated submission for the landscape package as well. And so because these things really become more defined towards the end of the project, I would be also fine for the lighting to come back as well. That would be common for us, that we're submitting all three of those, once the design is a little bit further along.
Yeah, my gut was that it would be submitted with the signage, but again, I'll let others comment.
Yeah, on the lighting piece, I feel like that does make sense to submit it with the landscape package as well, because it relates in some spaces. And then while I'm speaking, I had a question about the soffit of the canopies. Is it the same wood slat system that you're using on the walls adjacent?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's the same exact color and everything, or is it?
Yes, it's the same exact.
Okay, great.
be a shiplap, the same stain, same wood.
Okay, great. I, along with Cameron's comment on the board and batten, I also agree. I think the horizontal, I have no issue with the vertical protruding battens, but I think it's the horizontal ones that are really could be problematic. Would it be possible for you to resubmit kind of other options for that in your next submission, pending you don't get approved today?
Yeah, we would certainly request approval, or maybe, approval with conditions.
Sure.
But also just for clarity, maybe I didn't understand the previous comments when you say the horizontal versus the vertical. So what we're proposing here are breaks in this system, these horizontal breaks, and that would also include a drip edge and flashing there as well, and those are meant to align with the window. So is that what you're saying that you don't prefer?
Yeah, for me, I'm not sure. I can't speak for Cameron, but it's the horizontal shelves being created for debris piling up. And so I'd be curious to see some sort of recessed reglet or some sort of other joint condition at the horizontals.
And we do have a reveal at those locations at the horizontals. And we will have to break these at some point naturally. So I'm just trying to make sure that I understand, what the request is here. And I do think that we can accommodate, what you guys are looking for. I just want to make sure that I understand what it is that you're looking for.
I think the clarifying question is, do you have actual fiber cement horizontal pieces, or are those breaks between the panels flashed and there is some kind of metal joining piece in the horizontal, or are you actually bridging that gap with fiber cement?
That horizontal would be a reveal, a flashing reveal, metal fry reglet. That is what that horizontal is.
Gotcha. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
That's great. And then my last question is I love how you're incorporating color and art into the overall scheme. I'm curious what the materiality is of that art piece. Is that like a vinyl graphic being applied, or is that actually built material into the art piece?
We've done this, or the development team, the client, has done this on other projects where they actually used a real plaster coat and colored plaster coat. That could be a consideration. What I would recommend is that this is, and I should have brought it up before when we were talking about the signage and the lighting and the landscaping, that this is also included. We plan to work with a local artist on this piece, and we would defer to them and what they're able to do. Once we find that artist is how I respond to that.
So that material is plaster or stucco?
Paint, or that could be a plaster coat, depending on their capabilities. And we would provide detail on that when we submitted the signage and the landscaping and the lighting. Because at that point we would have had a chance to interface with the artist.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad you're using a local artist as well. Does this, I guess this is a question for city staff, does this have to go through Public Arts Committee approval? How does that get approved?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
The mural on the building, does that get approved through the Public Arts Committee, or do we approve that as a separate application? We don't typically approve colors, so
we approved the mural on the parking garage that Kazana did, Nick Kazana, both. So I do remember that.
Well, we're not an art committee, obviously. I think what the board is most interested in is how they activating that space. And so I think it's kind of up to them ultimately how they do that. We just want to make sure that it's not a blank space ultimately. I don't know if it goes to any type of other public art committee or not. I mean, it's not a public facility, I would suspect no.
Okay, but we do approve that has some sort of color or other material.
Yeah,
on
it's
that.
got a texture to it. I mean, the intent is that it's not just a white or, a solid color. Yeah.
Okay. So I think as a condition on the motion, I would want that to be stated what that material is.
Well, Tony, I agree with you. Like, if we don't know what the art's going to be and it doesn't go through any public, or not, because it's not, like it's been said, it could be anything. So I think it needs to be shown what it's going to be. We did this the other day with the door. We were approving a future door that was to be designed, and we didn't know what the door was. So I think there needs to be a bit more clarity on what the actual object is going to be. It could be anything. It could be Dolly Parton, which might be cool.
It could be. I'll go back, though, to the parking garage we approved for Nick Kazana. We didn't approve either mural. We were told that there would be murals. There's a mural on the summer place that didn't come through us at all. So I think it would be irregular for us to decide what mural is appropriate.
I wasn't on the board at the time, but I don't know about like the Maker Exchange as well, because that has some kind of mural work on it.
We did not decide what mural could go there as well.
I don't think we really have the expertise to approve murals, but I do want it to be stated what the material is, and that I don't know if is it part of the COA that will be a mural? Like, is that a condition of the COA?
It's
it would
on
have
the
to be.
plan, and I think you could make it a condition that it be some kind of, textured, painted, or whatever it might be, space. But it's always the hard part is over time. 10, 15 years down the road, the next operator decides that they don't want the mural there anymore. They paint it a certain color. So, I mean, longevity-wise, we don't know what it'll be. So if it's a space that you feel, if it is more of a solid color, is that really going to be an issue or not? So it's hard to regulate painted surfaces, unfortunately.
That's a good point, Mike. You're saying we have to, if we approve it as is, we can't necessarily say this is forever to be a mural. It's to say, like, if we squint our eyes and it's dark gray, does that still hold up as a design?
Yeah, I would say too that artwork discussion definitely touches on freedom of speech issues, and those are definitely ones that nobody wants to be involved with.
I have a question for the applicant. What's Brand's position on this? Is this something that they require, that they have any purview over, or is this strictly on the developers?
And Jason, on the line, if you have any specific response to that, you're welcome to chime in. But Brand has reviewed it at, say, a 30% level, which included showing this mural and the discussions around an artist being engaged at a later point in the design process, and they're happy with it. I think it adds to the project. As do we. It's kind of tucked away, so it's not something that's really in your face. You're seeing it very clearly in these elevations, but as you're moving up and down the street, further west down East Jackson, you wouldn't have any visibility to it at all. It would just read as a recess. It's not until you get closer to it that you actually experience it. And so, we think it's successful, and the brand thinks it's successful too.
All right, thanks.
This is Jason Acree with McKibben Places. We're hotel developers and been with the brand Marriott for several decades now, and have a very great relationship with them. Marriott loves the look of this building. They like the artwork that's on there. They've seen it. They've commented on it. It's very complimentary to the brand. And with respect to where the building is located within the city, they want to make sure that they are being good neighbors as well and good business here within the city of Knoxville. So the brand likes it. They're supportive of it, and I don't think I'm running out of good things to say. They just like the way it pops, and really highlights the structure.
I like I like that it's contextual. Kefi has a mural. There's a mural on the back of 2 bikes. I think we're going to see more pop up. So I like that. I do want to say, I remember when this came through workshop, I appreciate what you've done with the north elevation, with public space there, lots of transparency. And then I especially appreciate that you considered the west elevation, because it's not stockyard lofts looking at Barley's, but it also has a lot of transparency. So I appreciate you thinking about that.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. I wondered if you had any concerns about incorporating the additional entries based on the ordinance that was mentioned in the comments. I don't think we have to talk about specifically where they go, but do you have any concerns about making that happen?
No, not currently, and I need to go back and look. I know that we did get variances for at least a couple of these instances, but I don't think this is one of them. No, I do not have a concern there about entry. I guess, is there, but right now the gap is between the westernmost retail and the corner entry of the hotel. There are some administrative offices in that block. And so I think that right now we're right around 70 feet or so separation between those 2 entries. To be honest, I think there are ways that we can just adjust where those locations of the doors are to be able to meet that standard. So sorry, that's a long answer. No, we're not concerned.
Great, thank you.
One of the things that I was curious about, and that adjustment might impact this, but on the East Jackson Avenue side, and this might be captured too with, I think, number 2 under the staff recommendation as far as the streetscape and all of that, but the landscaping that's there immediately adjacent to that kind of pull-off that's closest to the corner of the building, to me, that really narrows the sidewalk, especially on that East Jackson Avenue side. So if you have, from a pedestrian experience, if you have people unloading their vehicles with suitcases or whatever, it's really kind of blocking, it's making the sidewalk the most narrow right there, where I feel like you would have the highest traffic point with that additional landscaping there. So I don't know if that would be just something to consider, how wide that is in that process of landscape.
Yes, agreed. And yeah, I appreciate that note. I think that there will be some quality of life changes when we submit the landscape, with that being one of them. I agree that it starts to create a pinch point there. The scale that's shown on the plans, that scale is certainly not the intent. Scale is for that to be much closer and tighter to the building, so that you have plenty of room to maneuver for people who are dropping off.
Thank you for that. Does the board have any more comments or questions?
I have one final question about the rooftop strategy. Is there equipment on the roof, and does your parapet, how tall is your parapet to cover any sort of equipment that's there?
Yes, there would be equipment on the roof. It would be located central to the roof, and the parapet, I could go back and confirm, but it's about 4 feet and it would cover the sight lines, the vast majority of sight lines, even from James White Parkway. So we'd be looking at it from James White Parkway. That would be the kind of the highest point at which somebody would be looking at towards the roof.
Is the only equipment that will be there the ones that are shown on the Axon view? Those two.
Yes, I will say that equipment is not finalized in terms of the engineering. And so we'll be sure to meet all of the standards and requirements for visual barriers, to the final equipment design.
Okay, great. I mean, if it's minimal and it's central to the bar, I think it wouldn't be visible. But if it is visible, I would definitely want to see what any sort of screening might look like.
Yes, our goal would be for it to be screened entirely by the parapet. And so locating that and sizing the parapet appropriately to screen that equipment from view is our expectation. And as we have the final equipment specification, we'll confirm that. If we end up needing to have additional screening or raise the height of the parapet, then we would do so, and we could also show that back to you. But at this point, we expect the parapet to be able to fully cover the installed equipment.
Thank you.
And my last comment would be, this is back to the board and batten. I don't feel like that's approvable where it stands. I think you've done a really nice job for the rest of the project, but that area of it just doesn't seem considered like the rest of it. I think that I know in your pro forma and your fees and everything for it, it needs to be a lesser material because it's the wider and larger swath of it. But there's smarter ways to use even the board and batten and flat panel with the battens. You can get battens at different sizes and start to have some interest in like a staccato pattern with the battens throughout it or something like that. It just seems like that elevation in the Revit model got turned to, and they're like, we just need to cover it with something, so let's put board and batten on it. And I'd like to see that have something a bit more thoughtful than just the board and batten.
Understood.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Does anybody not on the board have anything to say? Okay, then we're going to entertain a motion. I don't think I can make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve per staff recommendation, but add Tony's element that the material be called out for what the mural will be placed upon, what that material is.
Did you want to add the lighting to condition number 3 to come back?
Yes, have the lighting come back with the landscape.
I think the material could also come back with that submission as well, right? The material of where the mural's going.
I'm fine with that being staff approval, I think, and if you clearly state we're told that material will be plaster, right? That's what I think I heard.
John mentioned several different possibilities. I think if it's plaster and we just go with plaster, I think that's fine.
Can you clarify that as submitted, it's intended to be plaster?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So calling that material plaster.
Yep.
I'd second and want to add I guess this is fifth or fourth condition. Do we add another one? Fourth condition about the board and batten, and this could be staff approval, but to submit an alternate, I guess, layout or design of the batten or a flush panel reveal fiber cement system for the fiber cement area of the project.
Does the staff feel comfortable with that? I feel like if we're not okay with what's presented, then the alternative could be anything,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I agree. I'd prefer that to come back to the board.
Matthew, could we also add that the wood slat soffit be the same material as the wall? Or that's how he stated
Just
it.
clarifying that's what we discussed.
Since it's not on the application.
Sure.
Well, on my comment, if no one else on the board feels the same way, then we don't need to pursue that. So if anyone else nods their head then or doesn't, then I will not move forward with it.
I'm personally okay with the board and batten rhythm, especially because the battens are a lot denser than you see on some of those developments where it's like they really look like they're just covering a joint unthoughtfully. I feel like it's a rhythm they tried to create. I do understand the horizontal maintenance concern, but since you referenced a fry reglet that's recessed, I feel like that's likely resolvable on that's just my personal feeling on it.
I have a larger comment about fiber cement generally, and we talk about this every time it's proposed, is that we don't have a clear guideline about regulating it. The guidelines predate the popularity of that material, so I feel like that's something that needs to be addressed on a larger scale outside of this meeting.
Can we get clarification on, are you still seconding even though they're not accepting your?
I retract my second.
And your condition?
And my condition.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. Thank you.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to transition to infill housing, and our first case there is, well, our first, second, and third is 237 Chickamauga Avenue. And are we reviewing these as a set of three? Okay, so these are case numbers 12B 25IH, 12C 25IH, and 12D 25IH. And when we vote on these, we'll have to clarify which case number we are voting on. And if we're voting on all three, then we can say that, but it needs to be clear.
All right. We have 3 new construction cases for duplexes at 237 Chickamauga Avenue that will be heard together. The first 2 duplexes, 12B 25IH and 12C 25IH, have an identical plan, and the east duplex here is a mirrored version of the same plan. The applicant is proposing to subdivide an existing 207-foot wide lot into 3 lots, which are reflected here in the site plan. The subdivision plat should be approved as a separate application. These duplexes are middle housing projects, and middle housing review occurs during permitting. Some revisions to meet middle housing standards could require additional review by the board. The front setbacks should be increased to meet middle housing standards, and the walkways should connect with the street. Each duplex features a parking pad in the rear, accessed via driveway off of Chickamauga Avenue, which meets guidelines for placement. However, the 5-space parking pad for 12D 25IH is large in scale and exceeds middle housing requirements. The size should be reduced to the minimum for 4 parking spaces. The 40-foot wide by 55-foot deep duplex is generally wider than most houses on the block and is 5 to 10 feet deeper, except for the adjacent townhouse building. The depth is the maximum approved by middle housing and is appropriate for the duplex form. A recessed or projecting feature will need to be added to one of the side elevations to meet middle housing standards. Final drawings should include accurate foundation heights and renderings for each duplex. The depth and supports of the front porch meet the guidelines. The porch should rest on a block foundation instead of open posts. The roof meets the guidelines. The depicted details should be retained. All elevations feature sufficient transparency. The lap siding, part-coated block foundation, and asphalt shingles are appropriate. However, 3 siding materials are used on the facade, and there is no break in the massing to provide a transition for the proposed board and batten. Lap siding should be used as the primary siding material along all elevations with the same accent siding in all gable fields. Additional measures should be taken to introduce variety to the 3 almost identical duplexes, which can include variations in roof forms, accent siding, and colors. So staff is recommending approval of certificates 12B 25IH and 12C 25IH, subject to the same following conditions. The final site plan to meet city engineering standards, the front setback to be increased to meet middle housing standards to be approved by staff, meeting Article 4.6 and Article 9.3J, and introducing a recessed or projecting feature on the left elevation to be approved by staff. The final site plan to include a native or naturalized shade tree in the front and rear yards, using the existing trees unless removal is necessary for construction. Final elevation drawings to include the foundation height along the rear elevation and accurate renderings for the 3 adjacent projects. The porch to rest on a particle block foundation, accent siding to be used only in the gable fields and to be consistent along all elevations, varying the roof forms, accent siding, and color to differentiate from the identical adjacent duplexes to be approved by staff, returning the rake mold trim, gable base trim, gable vents, architectural brackets, and accent siding, the final plat to reflect the submitted site plan, meet the subdivision regulations, and be approved administratively in a separate application. Staff is recommending approval of Certificate D25IH, subject to the same conditions, but modifying Condition 1 to add here that the parking pad be reduced to the minimum size for 4 spaces, modifying Condition 3 to call out the right elevation, and Condition 5 to require accurate renderings of the mirrored plan. So the applicant has revised their plan since the staff recommendation to address the conditions. So on the site plan, they've addressed the front setbacks, walkways, and the trees in the front yard, but we're still waiting on just trees in the backyard, and the parking pad size for 12D25IH was not reduced. For each project, they're meeting that condition about the middle housing standards by projecting this forward a bit to add a recessed element here. And the porch placement for 12B25IH has been revised to the center of the facade to differentiate the buildings. 12C25IH is generally the same except for that recess. And then they submitted plans that reflected that mirrored plan for 12D25IH as well. So with that, the only outstanding elements of those staff conditions would be the trees in the rear yard and reducing the parking pad on 12D25IH. So the board should discuss the size of the parking pad for 12D25IH and whether the duplexes are sufficiently differentiated in the revised drawings.
Thank you, Melinda. Is the applicant present? Hi, can you give us your name and address, please?
Damon Falconeer, 4622 Chambliss Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to Melinda's comments?
Yes, what I'd like to do, the reason we want to keep the 12D with 5 parking spaces is we have a 190 square foot unit building there for the washer and dryers for the units. And so we wanted that extra space there for each of the duplexes to be able to drive over there in inclement weather to be able to do their washing and drying. And one other thing that was discussed but not brought up is we received the block face setback from Mike Robinson on September 22nd of 26 feet 4 inches. And that's what we designed for. And then when we submitted this information to the board, it came back that the front yard setback was 29.4. So we really want to get the right information first. That pushes everything back and makes the grading more steeper. So we'd like to, since we have documentation, we'd like to use the Mike Robinson being the author of the block face numbers, we like to use that, and we've shown that on here. We didn't move that on this plan.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we know where the discrepancy came from in that?
So, I didn't receive that email from Mr. Robinson. The block face calculation was provided by another member of city zoning staff. Okay. These are the types of things that are typically rectified during permitting. Okay. Middle housing standards require the setback to be within 5 feet of the block face. So plans review and inspection will, be reviewing that later.
Okay. So do you see that there's going to be a problem if they submit with the shorter distance?
So my guess is that the average block face, when it was originally calculated, either stopped at the RN5 or outliers weren't thrown out. And so it won't be a problem. We'll make it work.
Okay. So that's a good segue into the grading, because on the site plan that's in our packet, it looks like there's quite a bit of fall from front to back on the site.
Yes.
But your proposal grades it out much more flat, so that's why we're seeing that in the elevations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll open it up for board discussion.
Could you speak a little bit about the outbuilding that has the washer and dryers? So each of these units don't have their own washer and dryer?
Correct.
So these aren't autonomous to themselves. They have to leave to use the washer and dryer.
Correct.
But they are going to be separate lots.
Yes.
I guess point of clarification, would we need to review that building?
Yes.
So secondary structures, as long as they meet the design guidelines for placement, which that's all the design guidelines speak to, are approved administratively. Staff was not aware that this was a washer and dryer space, just thought it was trash or bike parking. So that's just something that they take care of with us administratively.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious why it's separate. It looks like there's just one less set of washers and dryers. Can you speak to why it was created separately in the first place?
The same owner owns the property adjacent to it.
Oh.
And there's no washer and dryers in those units also. So he's wanting to provide a common washer and dryer area with less than 200 square foot building.
I see.
It's something odd about that, though, because these are trying to look like autonomous structures. And I know the project to the right, that's a multifamily project that's not facing the road, it's facing west. And using this project to solve the problem of another project that's non-conforming. Honestly, if that was built today, that wouldn't be approved. I liked these projects at first till I saw that outbuilding, because I like that you've got duplexes, so you're getting density in a single family lot. But if one day these weren't duplexes and someone moved into them, that wouldn't be set up for they'd have to, it's not a massive add, but they'd have to add washer lines and dryer venting. It's just strange. They're not complete houses.
I have a question about that. Looking at the plan, there are some utility spaces allocated in here. Is there an intention that they could be added later? Or is it going to be plumbed that way?
There is a possibility to do that later. The owner does not want to do it in the present time, but we did allocate some space in case it was to be done later, correct?
Okay.
Good eye.
But is this meeting middle housing in that it's providing a unit that's autonomous to itself? It's not a dwelling unit anymore. Is that starts to get into what constitutes a dwelling unit?
I don't think a washer and dryer is needed for a dwelling unit. It's other things like kitchen, bathroom, that kind of thing.
Correct.
There's lots of houses in the fort that don't have washers and dryers.
Plus,
But they're 100 years old. These are brand new.
but if these were to change hands, somebody would volitionally be buying this. They'd be willfully purchasing a place without washer and dryer. So
Is it slab on grade or crawl space?
Crawl space.
Yeah, I think I'm fine since the utility space is already provided for that future use. So I have no issue, but just curious about that.
One last comment on it. What's odd about it to me is that now we're approving like a development, not individual houses. This is like a multifamily project now. And we're now supporting washers and dryers that are supporting a multifamily project adjacent to it. Like I'm not doing this just to be a pain in the ass. Like it just is confusing to me that these are not, this isn't like an infill house. It's odd. I've never seen a washer and dryer brought to the outside, and your comment that that's there to support a project that we're not even approving as well is a bit odd, is why I'm bringing this up more.
it sounds like, I'm wondering, Cameron, if you couldn't approve, we have to approve them all individually. So basically you have to be willing to approve a future home without a washer and dryer.
Well, I don't think that's our purview anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we're reviewing based on the exterior appearance guidelines.
Yeah,
So-
and again, 99%, I think this is great. Like I was psyched to see, I live close to this. It's taking a single family house on a massive lot and getting 6 units. It's exactly what middle housing is for, but now there's it's tainted with this weird outbuilding that's where people have to drive over to do their washing and drying, and it's serving 4 other units adjacent to it. I guess for me, it's trying to make sure that the middle housing guidelines this is a test of like, is it holding up? And I just want to make sure that we consider that.
I mean, it is providing 6 brand new units, but
Yep, no question. There's housing being provided. I
But
think it's just the oddity that's throwing me off.
We're also not determining whether it meets middle housing. We're determining whether it meets the infield guidelines.
But they're getting to do it because of the middle housing guidelines.
But they're still going to have to go get approved for middle housing. They have to get approved for both.
Yeah, middle
So-
housing review will occur during permitting, and I believe that under middle housing standards, that couldn't be turned into an accessory dwelling unit. For example, it could only be a standard outbuilding.
Okay.
I do think it would be
There are laundry services too. And I know that because the condo I'm in right now has 0 washer and dryer that I'm renting. So there's Poplin, which is like an Uber, dirt cheap. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's kind of a newer thing. There are apps out there that a lot of families use. So we can't assume that people think about laundry the same way we do as we move into a different era of, convenience.
Yeah. And I would have more problem with it if it was a slab on grade and it was unlikely that anybody was going to put the utilities in later. And I would have more problem with it if the space wasn't allocated. But there are 2 spaces where it would be easy to put washer dryers in.
That's a great point. They've got the crawl space to be able to actually access that too.
Yeah. So
I think I was just going to say, one of the things that is a little disappointing because of that additional parking needed to be there is just the reduction of green space outside. This being not downtown, having that green space for the residents there would be really nice. And now it's a parking lot. So, I think laundry is important, but, from that kind of standpoint, quality of life, that's one thing that kind of stuck out to me, but.
Well, to your point, Jared, currently that yard is basically the play area for the multifamily project to the right. That's where all the kids play. So you're not wrong in thinking that yard space is important for quality of life, though that's not what we're reviewing for the guidelines for Design Review Board.
is it the intent that those parking areas are paved?
Yes.
It just seems like it's like we're putting extra parking for almost like a commercial use, like come wash your clothes behind this house. It's like if we approved it's like, can you drive over to the other house to use their bathroom? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like an odd notion to have this outbuilding with your washer and dryer services over there. And I get they could even outsource their washer and dryer, but raise your hand on this board if you've ever approved a house that didn't have washer.
Well,
then speak up.
Well, no,
Tell me about it.
I live in a duplex and I'm a renter.
No. I mean,
And
that we've approved on this board as a ground up house.
we've
that
never
has been-
seen something like this. So
That's correct.
But
That's all the reason why I'm asking about
we've
it.
approved structures that are behind buildings and infill
Absolutely.
housing.
Yeah,
So-
ADUs and outbuildings for
Yeah.
storage. But the fact that he said that's extra parking is so people from other projects can drive onto this lot and use the washer and dryer services.
Yeah.
Is just odd. And
So I wonder if we shouldn't be thinking about the extra parking spot and not the function of the building back there.
Good point.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is it that first house on the left, is that one not a duplex? Why does it have 2 spaces and everyone else is required to have 4? I may have missed that.
It's all that's required. And the grades were not compatible to be able to put more spaces there.
So 2 is the minimum for all 3 houses?
Yes, it's the middle housing has reduced parking standards.
So actually 0.7 spaces required per unit. So if we round it down, only 1 is required per duplex.
I could be mistaken, but on the 12D, so that one on the far right, is it showing a sidewalk going to the property? So if you, I don't know, say you did have people coming from next door, are all of those additional parking spaces necessary? Sarah, kind of to your point, I don't know, is it, if we were to have them reduce the size of that, does that, I don't know, kind of get at what we're talking about?
It's getting into allowable uses. But again, someone said, imagine that's just a dot there and there's an outbuilding, then they just have extra parking and people can walk over there. But right now there's a sidewalk extending to the adjacent property for its use. So it's a use discussion too. On a RN2 lot, community washer and dryer.
Melinda, could you pull up the staff? Or I think you've got controls, but there were some highlighted pieces. Okay, thank you.
Mark, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to clarify a little bit. So the washer and dryer, it's that whole building is going to be an accessory structure to that one property. Technically, we can't approve it for communal use. Otherwise, it's more of a business.
Yes.
And at that point, it wouldn't be a permitted use. And then the building itself is going to go under base zoning standards. So there's going to be some other complications as far as building coverage, impervious coverage, because middle housing doesn't have any accessory use structures or anything incorporated into it. So it's going to go back to base zoning. So it may not be able to be there once we get final calculations for everything. So it may not actually be there, but we'll have to review that during permitting.
But you're speaking to the structure, not to the additional parking spot?
Right. The parking is going to go for the use of the middle housing structure, but the accessory structure itself, we'll have to look at that during permitting. It could get to the point where it may require a variance if needed, and they still want to pursue it.
Is there any zoning or complication with the sidewalk extending over to the property line, to the adjacent property for their use, which you mentioned, use the word communal use?
So if the building isn't there anymore and it's just a sidewalk, it's still going to be just for the use. I'm sure they would tie it into the building. But if the accessory structure is there and the sidewalk's going to it, then we'll have to take into that piece of concrete as part of the overall impervious calculations for the lot.
Mm-hmm.
One comment I have about the parking, I think it is unfortunate that the driveway takes up so much of the lot. I think if my understanding is correct, for a duplex, you don't need a turnaround. You can back into the right-of-way. Is there a scenario, it looks like there might be space to be able to pull into the driveway and then have two side-by-side spots, at least on the far left lot. Maybe the middle one as well. If you were to alter the floor plan somewhat to have two side-by-side spots in the side yard rather than taking up the little yard space that they have for parking.
I think that might be a better design choice, but again, if they're allowed to have a driveway and parking in the rear, then I don't think we're allowed to dictate the design in that way.
That's fair. I think given that there's not a lot of yard space, it's going to be that much more important that the porches be larger, which I think, is that a condition? That was already a condition of the...
It was not a condition that the porches be larger. They already meet the minimum 8-foot depth requirement, and the guidelines recommend that the width of porches is proportional to the street, and the street features a lot of stoops and half-length porches. So staff considered them to meet that. They just changed the placement of the porch, and we did request that the porch foundation be a parge-coated block as opposed to the previous just posts going to the ground.
Could we make the side porches also 8 feet as well, since that's a separate unit?
Yeah, y'all could request that. Off the top of my head, I don't remember how deep they were.
I think there's 6 on the side. To give a little flexibility because of the narrow lot.
Is it accurate that there's currently no sidewalks on the street along Chickamauga, the stretch?
correct. Okay. And D has an easement there for utility easement that would prohibit it from being any wider than 6 feet.
I just wanted to clarify real quick. In middle housing, if the property is within a quarter mile of transit and the street has transit on it, parking is not required. So technically, there's no parking requirement for these units. So.
Yeah, which is why adding a 5th parking spot to a unit that requires 0 so that people can communally use the washer and dryer is odd.
Yeah, my general feeling about the application is that it does a good job of meeting a lot of the material standards, the accent siding and the gables, the setbacks, those things that were, the difference in plane on the elevations, and the parge coat. Like a lot of things are checking the boxes of the design guidelines, which is nice. I would be inclined, this is just me as a reviewer of this, to not grant that 5th parking space, but to allow 4 behind each of those 2. And the outbuilding, though unusual in program, is a common scale for an accessory structure in a neighborhood like this. And so even though the use, I guess, isn't reviewed by us anyway, but is uncommon, at least that size doesn't feel discordant with the neighborhood. Just my general assessment.
You want to turn that into a motion? Is there any further discussion? And also from the audience, is there any discussion? Okay.
I think the only thing that I want to just be sure that we touch on, because we have seen this in infill so much, is the height of the block, of it kind of getting out of hand and turning into the Smoky Mountains. Is this what's represented here, what was resubmitted?
Yes, so these are the revised plans, and they did address that foundation height. So at its highest point, I believe this house has the tallest foundation, and it's 4 foot tall in the front, a bit shorter here. And so if the foundation ended up being taller than that significantly, we would have it come back for y'all to see as early as we could.
Yep.
Is that already in the staff recommendations? I forget.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. These plans address the staff recommendations, but yes, right here you see about the foundation height.
And I would say, since it sounds like to me there might be some slightly different recommendations for each of the properties, doing separate motions on each one, because I think, Sarah, with what you're saying, that would be approving 4 parking spaces on 12C and 12D, but not on the other building, for instance. So I think, right, exactly. So, yeah.
And right now it's 2 staff recommendations.
Yes, so 12B and 12C have the same staff recommendation. 12B has the 2 parking spaces, this one has 4. And so that's why those were addressed. The only changes really for this one are just that we're asking for the 4 parking spaces and just properly labeling the elevation and asking for the mirrored plans. Those are the only differences. This is the only one where there's any condition about the parking.
Okay, so the right approach, we think, is to have 2 motions, one for the B and C and one for D. And I think the comments that I had earlier are already addressed in the staff recommendations with the parking minimum of 4, right?
I would just clarify that it's probably easiest if we do them one at a time instead of trying to couple any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Okay, great. Oh, perfect. Got the numbers. Okay. I will make a motion then to approve 12B25IH per staff recommendations. You guys stop me if I'm messing this up. Also to approve 12C.
No, we have to vote on that one.
Oh,
first.
one at a time. Okay.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for 12B25IH and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries.
Can we clarify that it's the original block face?
Yes. So the condition about the setback is just that it meets middle housing standards. So that's going to be worked through in permitting. It's not prescriptive about anything with the block face measurements.
Okay. Is that okay? Are you good? Okay.
Great. I would like to make a motion that we approve application 12C 25IH in accordance with the staff recommendations.
I second.
We have a motion and a second for 12C25IH. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries.
And then I would like to make a motion to approve 12D 25IH in accordance with staff recommendations, particularly the 4 parking spaces.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and that one includes reducing the proposed 5 down to 4, which is in accordance with the staff recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have 2802 North Broadway, which is case 12E25IH.
Okay. Our last case is for 2 new identical 3-story multifamily buildings accessed via Bill Williams Avenue. The plans indicate a 3rd apartment building on the neighboring parcel that is labeled Phase 2, which is not a part of this application because a 12-unit apartment building is not currently a permitted use under the zoning. A rezoning case to RN5 for right here and right here will be heard at the January 8th Planning Commission meeting to allow for the 3rd building. Both depicted parking lots are included in this application, but the 3rd building will need to be reviewed in a separate application. Rezoning this adjacent property to RN5 could create additional zoning issues with the current plans. The front and rear elevations are labeled as the side elevations on the plans, and the side elevations are labeled as the front and back elevations. The setbacks are not specified, but there are issues meeting the build to zone percentage, and side setbacks of the property zoning that should be resolved before the case is approved. Additionally, the property has a cross slope rising approximately 20 feet from west to east. The grading plan is not clear, and details are not provided for the detention pond, with notes indicating these elements will be finalized later by a civil engineer. The current site plan and setbacks could be significantly affected by necessary revisions to meet city engineering standards and stormwater requirements. The proposed driveway running in front of the buildings and the parking lots adjacent to the buildings does not align with the recommendations of the design guidelines, which state that, quote, parking should be provided behind apartments, and that, quote, on streets without alleys, parking pads should be at least 20 feet behind the front facade. Plans review and inspection expressed concerns about the access. The board should discuss the parking and driveway placement and whether additional measures should be taken to reduce the size and visibility of the parking. The landscaping includes the shade trees recommended by the guidelines, shrubs around the perimeters of the buildings, and buffer yards along the south lot line that abuts a rear block of single-family houses. Existing trees are marked to be preserved along the north and south lot lines, which aligns with guideline recommendations, and the applicant provided a tree survey and more landscaping details yesterday, which can be found at the end of your packet. Revisions to the Class A buffer will be necessary to comply with the landscaping ordinance. The site plan includes sidewalks along the perimeters of the parking lots and a potential pedestrian access to North Broadway over the detention pond as depicted on the west lot line. Guidelines recommend that new construction feature a walkway to the street. Pedestrian access to Bill Williams Avenue should be provided, and the applicant should coordinate with city engineering to confirm the feasibility of the pedestrian access to North Broadway. The guidelines for multifamily housing recommend that new multifamily buildings be, quote, designed in scale and context with the early architectural features of the neighborhood. The block only features commercial and office buildings, and Branson Avenue to the south here primarily features craftsman bungalows. Most nearby apartments are 2-story with brick cladding and date from the 60s to the 80s, with the exception of 2 3-story Tudor apartment buildings from 1928 at 3328 North Broadway with elaborate parapets and masonry detailing. These are about a half-mile away. The proposed buildings are modern in style, but they incorporate brick cladding with alternating bond profiles to align with the context. Variations in the proposed parapets, such as the crenellations and gables on that historic apartment building, could add visual interest to the front elevations and increase compatibility with surrounding residential architecture. The 3-story height is appropriate within the surrounding non-residential context. However, separate drawings should be submitted for each elevation, and the final drawing should be unique for each building and accurately depict the foundation along grade. Guidelines recommend using, quote, porches, bays, and breaks in the front facade to create massings, quote, divided into separate sections that are proportionally similar to the original houses on the block. This is achieved by the alternating modules, the brick and siding, and the clerestory massing. However, a recess and or projection should be added to the flat front elevations. The applicant should coordinate with plans review and inspections about any necessary revisions to meet the principal use standards for multifamily development. Guidelines for single-family and multifamily construction encourage incorporating porches or stoops with proportions compatible with the context. The open central staircase massing is oriented towards the side yards and is accessed via a small concrete walkway from the parking lot in the east elevations. Multifamily buildings recently approved within the overlay have included porches large enough for seating at shared and individual entries. The board should discuss whether revisions to incorporate a porch element are necessary, such as providing space for seating, emphasizing the entrance on the central massing, or adding a shared patio space on the front elevations. The building features a flat roof with a shed roof clerestory, which is appropriate for a modern multifamily building. The side elevations feature shorter parapets on the recessed brick massings, but the parapets on the front and rear elevations do not vary in height. Variations to the parapets and clerestory roof forms could be used to differentiate the buildings and to incorporate contextual architectural features. The horizontal siding and brick cladding meet the design guidelines, and the design benefits from the brick detailing, which should be retained. Brick masonry or veneer should be used as opposed to thin brick. The 2 apartment buildings and the third, not included in this application, feature an identical design. The board should discuss the site plan, parking placement, the front elevations, a potential porch element, and measures to differentiate the buildings. Staff is recommending postponement of Certificate 12E25IH to allow the applicant to resolve zoning issues, clarify details on the site plan, and provide unique elevation drawings.
Thank you. Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, Logan Higgins, 133 South Gay Street. So I'm sure all of you all remember when we were here back at the end of the summer for a workshop about this site. A few things I'll reiterate from that and then address some of the things that we discussed and then some of the things in the staff report. I will also go ahead and preface that because of the oddities of the split zone property with some of the conditions of both zonings, we do need to take a look at the requests that we have currently for the rezoning on the right parcel there. And we also need to take a look at the current zoning on CG2 of CG2 on the left parcel. So we are completely okay with the postponement today. However, did want to go ahead and get before you all for additional feedback before we come back. So jumping right into it, one of the things that was discussed at the workshop last time was site layout. As mentioned, this site plan was provided before we were involved in the project by a civil engineer who's still involved in the project. They laid out the building based off the clients, laid out the parking and the building footprints based off the client's needs, and that's what we worked with. After the workshop or when we were here, we went back to that engineer and said, hey, let's look at some other options for how to do this. And over the next couple weeks with a few meetings, looked at over a dozen different layout options. And really the things that ended up happening is one thing that was mentioned is, yes, the driveway is in between the apartments and Bill Williams Avenue. But to flip that to the other side puts the drive aisle and parking more on the residential side of the, in the backyard of those neighbors, and ends up leading to more paving, more impervious area. So that's just one of the examples of going through all of the different scenarios that either significantly cut down on the ability to do the number of units desired, or led to much more paved area just to, and a loss of what little green space there is. So that's why the layout is the same as it was, and why we're not, as mentioned, excuse me, as it was mentioned, the drive aisle is in between the buildings and the parking, or the street. Also in the staff report was mentioned the stormwater management. Again, that was drawn by a civil engineer, so we trust it, but we will get additional information from them to ensure that is compliant. And another thing that I would, or a couple more things. When we were here with the workshop, we talked about outdoor space. And again, the focus with a very important aspect of this is affordability for the rental rates. And so they are trying to minimize the amount of construction work, and that's why they're hoping to not build individual porches. However, we did set aside a shared outdoor space that if we need to, we can design more detail into it. Because that portion of the site is not in the current request, we didn't include that, but would be happy to provide more detail on that if we need to when we come back. Additionally, we talked about materials last time, and one of the things that is included that you can see it a little bit better in these views than the other elevations is the brick detail. So again, when we were here at the workshop, there was a lot of discussion about brick detail and what is possible now compared to historic precedents that we have. Obviously, we know we can't recreate or even get to some of that quality, but we have tried to add some character, or some differentiation within the brick by having different bond styles and providing a little bit of variety in that. And then also in regards to the 3 buildings, we looked at doing a scenario where each building was like a different color or something, and it didn't look super great. It kind of felt forced in a way that none of us really were very comfortable with. So we were more comfortable if you could go to the view that shows all 3 on the site. I was thinking there might be another one that's more bird's eye view, but that's just kind of where we landed. I would love to hear your all's feedback on that, and I think that's pretty much the overview. I know that there's a lot more to talk about with this, so I'll shut up and let someone else take it away.
Thank you for that. We'll open it up for discussion.
Sure. I just want to note that the staff recommended postponement, which is something rare. So obviously, the reasons behind their recommendation to postpone resolving zoning issues, clarifying details on site plan, provide unique elevation drawings. I think these are things that need to be sorted out before we talk about these other things. It seems like we're being asked to have a workshop here because whatever we approve, the product of that could potentially just be negated by all the work that hasn't been done yet. And Logan, no disrespect, but I heard you say that you supported a motion to postpone. So I'd like to make a motion to postpone.
Was there any validity to talk about any of the architectural elements though before we postpone it that would not be bearing on the zoning?
In a workshop, there would.
Yeah, I think that if staff recommends postponement and the applicant doesn't have a problem with postponement, then I agree with Rick.
If we're postponing, this may not be applicable, but are there other people here to speak on this one?
It's a good question. I don't think so. Is there anybody else?
Okay. We didn't receive any comment from the neighborhood.
Okay. I do think there's plenty to discuss, but if there's more work to do and we don't really know exactly what we're talking about yet, then I don't see the point.
All right, I second Rick's motion.
I think we will need to include a 30 days or period of time, I believe, in the motion, the postponement. Am I correct?
Do we have to do that anymore, do we?
Yes, it is included in the administrative rules. HCC does not have that requirement, but this board does.
30, 60, what would you?
What do we need for zoning?
Let's go with 30
Okay.
for now.
So I'll amend the motion to include 30-day postponement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries. We have one more official item on the list, which is to review and approve our meeting schedule for 2026. Mike, do you have anything to say about that?
No, the meeting schedule is as normal. We will still meet on every third Wednesday of the month, so there's no odd months where we need to shift that.
Great, thank you. So your schedule is in the packet and also was distributed. So we will entertain a motion to approve. What?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Great, thanks. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the schedule for 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that one carries.
I'd love to ask one question before it's not on any of these cases, but it's come up a bunch, and that is if this body wanted to add materials to the guidelines, to the existing guidelines, add material requirements, addressing the issues at the batten board that we've been talking about, like that, what is the process for that?
Well, I guess there's two ways to go about it. There's the material standards within the zoning district itself, within the zoning ordinance. That's a bit, so that'd be a zoning code amendment. Otherwise, there could be more specificity in the guidelines on what is appropriate, or maybe how much of a, generally, like how much of a facade should have certain types of materials, or so. Guidelines typically don't give you an exact amount. They'll just kind of give you a general sense of what's intended. And then the board will interpret that and make a determination of whatever is being presented to you is appropriate. But the process would be, it's probably best for the board to maybe agree or approve like a resolution or a request to consider amending the guidelines, and then as a staff we can get that into our work program. I'm sure there's other items in the guidelines we want to address sooner than later too. So I think that could be one of those elements that we look at. So you wouldn't necessarily have to give a resolution unless you really want that to like happen before anything else. But we do want to address the guidelines sooner than later as well.
So that's a motion I can make right now?
If you want to, you can.
Yeah, I think Cameron would, stuff that Cameron, many of us had discussed. We have a thriving downtown, and we're still building with materials that aren't appropriate there anymore. And I would love to see the guidelines add some elements so that we can work within certain parameters about materials.
Are we allowed to have our own workshop about that?
Yeah, you can have your own workshop.
So we could put that on the schedule for a subsequent meeting
The only
and
thing-
invite the public.
Sorry, the only thing that I would recommend on this, if you are going to do a formal motion to get it on the work plan, as you obviously know because you're going to city council and we will miss you very much, but I would maybe leave it open for it to be either to the guidelines or to the ordinance. Obviously, amending the guidelines in terms of it going before this board, it would just need one motion here and then a resolution at council just on one reading. An ordinance amendment, of course, will take 2 readings on council, so.
Yeah, the guideline update is already on our work program to do. I can't give you an exact date of when that's going to happen, but as part of that project, we'll obviously bring up the materials. We know that that's a concern, so.
I think to further the question, like for the process on our end, would we have a workshop to discuss material changes, and then like the law department would put together the writing, the language for the change in the guidelines?
Typically what happens is staff will kind of gather some ideas of some things that we already know about that are issues, have a workshop with the board, see if there's any other things that need to be considered, and also discuss what that might be, and then we can draft something and then bring it back to the board at some point, either as another workshop or as an item for approval, moving on through the system to the planning commission and the city council.
And I'll say too, just from a matter of, mechanism, how it works. We always, come to the table, all of us together, planning, plans review, law department, sometimes policy. We all work together to draft these changes.
May I make a stab at a motion?
Please.
I'd like to make a motion that staff consider the best mechanism for us to consider adding material requirements to the guidelines. So whether that's ordinance or guidelines. And then I would secondly like that motion to include that staff would hold a workshop with the sitting design review board to discuss those material requirements.
Do you want to say when?
Sure, before April 1st.
That's very generous. Yes, very good.
We have an excellent motion on the floor.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. And now the most important part of the evening, as we have to thank Matthew for his work on the Design Review Board. Congratulations on your win. Thank you for serving our city so well. And somehow I'm getting choked up a little bit. So anyway, I just admire a lot what you have done and will do. And I'm sure that the board agrees. So thank you very much. We do have a plaque to commemorate your time on the board.
I know what it is.
Don't be a stranger. Thanks. We do have one more thing to do, which is a workshop, but we're going to take a 5-minute break and reconvene. Okay, thanks. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's been 5 minutes, so I don't want to waste anybody's time. Welcome. Hi. Just give us your name and let us know who you're with, and we'll get started.
Sure. I'm Christine Cobb. I'm here with Quad Capital Partners. We are a development company that's headquartered in Ann Arbor. Do I need to say my address, or is it okay?
For a workshop, I don't think so.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is just
Love it.
Just intended to be helpful. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. What a great forum. Yes, I'm with Quad Capital Partners. We are headquartered in Ann Arbor. It is a company that's been around for about 50 years, investing in predominantly Ann Arbor and then branching out into other university-anchored markets to deliver mostly housing, but some other commercial real estate in development and investment. And we have the property under contract at 100 West Depot that I'm here to talk about tonight.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, Michaela, I sent a presentation to her, and then Adam Jekyll from Nor Architects, who's our designer, is on the call as well.
Great.
So he can chime in with any answers, but fantastic. So this is just an example. I didn't know how formal tonight was, but an example of some of the projects that we were currently delivering or under construction on in Madison, Wisconsin, Boulder, Colorado, and then Charlottesville, Virginia. And again, it's a family-owned company. We are backed by a pension fund. We are well-capitalized, have a great team engaged here of local and national consultants that have been working on this project for the past almost 9 months. We've been having a lot of separate meetings with KCDC and the city of Knoxville, trying to get feedback as we moved throughout the process. So that's been really helpful. These are just orienting slides to understand where the site sits relative to the broader city of Knoxville. And then Michaela, if you go to the next one, excuse me, Melinda, the property itself within Old City. We have essentially we've been coming to Knoxville for the past 9 months and almost a year, just love the charm and character of this area. And when presented with the opportunity for just over 2 acres of a almost flat site that could be very much of an infill development, it's super exciting. We're very engaged to be here. We're working really closely with the Dewhurst team as our seller. and have been following all the real estate news to try to understand what the hot button issues are in conjunction with the conversations that we've had with the local officials so that we can kind of put our best foot forward. So we're hoping to do that tonight. If you want to go to the next slide, obviously we're in a mixed-use neighborhood on the north side of the tracks in Old City. We have residential use, a food market, entertainment, bars. We have historic structures to our west with the Southern Depot building and railway building, and then residential also to our east with the White Lily residences. The site characteristics, as I mentioned, it's about 2.2 acres. It has a very long frontage on Depot, 485 feet, and 175 feet along Central. It is brownfield in character. It's a former transportation and industrial use. It's currently being used as a over 2-acre parking lot in the middle of the city, and has some grading nuances with it. You can get a little bit of a sense from the photo in the lower right where there's at the far west end of the site upwards of a 12-foot grading discrepancy between where the sidewalk right-of-way is and where the parking area and grade is, where the existing buildings sit and the parking lots themselves. There's also about a 5-foot grade change as you move north to south on the property, and we're trying to reconcile all of that in addition to having the rail as a pretty firm boundary on the southern side to deliver a project that we really want to have be successful. So in that vein, kind of contributing to the urban fabric of this area, the built environment of Old City, and taking inspiration from the architecture that's in the immediate area, really trying to do something to bridge Central Street as you move from south to north and north to south and really fill in part of the smile along Central. So it's not just a 2-acre parking lot, but there's something there to really engage and connect the community and transform the site. We've studied the design guidelines very closely for this warehouse district and for the public and private aspirations and tried to imbue our design with that. And this is what the project, a rendering of the project as you would look to the southwest looks like. We're calling it platform for now, inspired by the rail history of the property itself. We have worked and tooled and retooled the site to really provide as much activation at the streetscape as possible. We have an ample amount of retail that I will share with you today, activation in terms of live, work, artist units at the street front as well. We have our lobby on Central Space on Depot across from Ogden, really doing as much as we can to just present a beautiful building that fits with the character of the area and activates the entire corner. This is our first floor plan. As I mentioned, it is a long rectangular site, which is really helpful as we're laying out a parking podium. What we're trying to accomplish here is have as flat as a podium as possible, even though we have all these grading changes, so we can tie together the streetscape on ultimately the second level, and then have the optionality in the future to repurpose these parking plates to the extent in the future a user doesn't need this much parking. They could be adaptively reused because we're basically providing flat, no ramping, 2 different points of access to each level of the garage. If you want to click through these quickly, you'll see that it's over 6,700 square feet of retail. The entire frontage of Central Street, wrapping both corners, is activated. We've provided off-street loading so that all of the activity in terms of move-ins, move-outs, refuse, any type of parking access to the first floor, all of that is off-street. And we have 2,300 square feet of artist lofts, live workspaces, and 3 separate units provided along Depot to do 2 things really. One is introduce a different housing product type. 2 is to continue the retail experience and kind of commercial use as you round the corner on Depot. And then we are providing public art that you'll see when we get to the renderings. As you continue to wrap the corner and as we tie together with the grades that are on the west side of the site that are 12 feet or so elevated with where the frontage on Depot connects with our building, this is where we have our access point for our second parking garage. We've continued the commercial activation experience by providing our lobby and leasing area at the center of the building in a 2,200 square foot space. And then we basically step the building back about 10 to 12 feet so that we can provide significant landscaping to buffer this small portion of our garage that would be exposed on Depot. And we're also preserving the mature trees that were planted there as part of the World Fair in 1982. This is our third floor plate. It provides the amenities. I don't know how much you all get into the interior of the building, but we are providing 270 units. We are working with KCDC right now on a pilot, so we have 10% of these units as affordable. We have included approximately 6,300 square feet of interior amenities, and then this ample exterior deck amenity with over 17,000 square feet in 2 separate courtyards, kind of 3 courtyards. The goal and what we typically deliver, if you look to our other products, and then the portfolio history of our team, is really the highest caliber property, the highest caliber experience to attract the best people and the most investment that we can make in a community. It's a mix of studios, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, and the live-work units that are on the first floor. It's 7 stories total, so it's 2 stories of a concrete podium with 5 stories of wood frame construction above. And then included a roof plan. Somebody asked about this previously as well. We do have a 15-foot setback, typical for all of our mechanical equipment that's on the roof, and we don't expect there to be, it's compliant right now. Our architects have done a great job kind of combing everything. I'm going to go through a handful of renderings and just reiterate some of the priorities. So this is in the Jackson Depot redevelopment area. The goal overall is to expand housing and expand housing options within Knoxville, and to create a vibrant mixed-use area downtown, connecting Central Street and then activating all of Central and a substantial portion of Depot, and ultimately taking what's currently used, over 2 acres for parking downtown, and really investing substantially to revitalize this part. You can see a mural that we've proposed, which is over 500 square feet facing the rail. It's opposite several other murals that are south of the Norfolk Southern tracks. You can see, as you round the corner, our eastern elevation here along Central, fully activated. The retail, because of the grading discrepancy, moves from being about 15 feet clear on the first floor on the eastern side, on plan right, to about 17 feet on plan left. We're providing 3 different bays right now, 2,200 square feet on average. All of that will ebb and flow as we progress in the development. The other piece that we're really excited about is just having a beautiful masonry facade facing this part of Central as you move north, and just the opportunities for streetscaping and pedestrian engagement, creating something very special at the corner. You can see the brick and masonry wrapping the corner as you turn onto Depot and get a sense of the length of the building along Depot. If you want to go to the next slide, these are our 3 live-work units right now. These are very cool. They're still getting laid out. We have essentially the opportunity to provide, I believe it's 12 to 18 feet ceilings. Adam can chime in. We have balconies on all of the units at this point, Juliet or full balconies, depending on what the configuration is and distance to the right-of-way. The building's currently set back about 2 feet from the property line. As you march down the building, you'll see our main entry with a feature canopy, the potential address of 200 West Depot, and really a bright light kind of welcoming people into the lobby, where we would have professional management on site and a lot of activation roughly across from where Ogden intersects Depot. If you continue, you can see the handful of trees that we're trying to preserve from the World's Fair, and then additional landscaping that we're providing beyond to screen the garage. As you turn the corner, more masonry present at the corner, another mural that is facing the historic rail buildings, and you can also get somewhat of a sense, it's difficult to illustrate, just the grading discrepancy that we have here between where the street sits and where the surface of the parking area sits, in our adjacent neighbors that wouldn't be leaving. Bird's eye view to really give a sense of how big of a hole this is right now in the community, and how we've tried to position the development to really fill that in a very thoughtful way so that we're activating and really making sure the pedestrian experience is as strong as it can be. And at the same time, drilling into, delivering a very efficient building given the geometry of the site. If you go to the next slide, you can see the treatment from the other side. Again, get a sense of just how special this courtyard is going to be as it faces all the views of downtown Knoxville and the different setbacks that we have from the rail. We did include a handful of initial materiality slides. Adam can speak to these, but at a high level, the intent is to provide masonry, majority of the fenestration in the building, opening a lot of openings that we have on the first floor, windows in a really nice rhythm throughout as you move down the building, and then masonry and cementitious panel throughout. And a substantial amount of screening to the south for the rail lines for us, and then along where the portion of the exposed non-mechanically heated garage is on Depot. That's it. Hopefully that was, anyway.
Thank you.
We're so excited. Really welcome your feedback. Adam, please feel free to chime in if there's anything that you want to mention.
Just as a test, can the folks online hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Who's the architect again?
Nor Architecture?
Nor?
Yeah, Adam, do you want to do a quick and a little,
Yeah, sure. So I can talk a little bit more about the materiality. I know a question came, I was listening in earlier to some of the earlier applicants. This is full depth brick, so this is going to be modular brick, 2 1/4 inch tall, 7 5/8 width, and a 3 5/8 inch deep brick. For the fiber cement cementitious panels, we're looking at Hardy's Artisan. What you see between the windows, which is a shiplap, so every 9 inches there's a pretty nice looking joint line. And then between the windows, it would be a larger architectural Hardy type panel that would be also fiber cement. We had some details that we were also looking at for the base of the building, and that's a question we were told might come up in the workshop or beyond, and those details are, basically we're taking the brick and creating a brick ledge or stone ledge, if you will, below the elevation of the sidewalk, so the brick will be continuous. I know the bottom, 10, 12 feet of the building is really important, how that's perceived by someone, and so we don't plan to have any exposed concrete base at the bottom of the building. It's either going to be brick or stone that's going below to a brick ledge that's below the elevation of the sidewalk. And the other thing that I've heard that could be questionable, or we heard this on Church and Henley, is that you guys did not like the balconies there. And so we're looking at a company called Endurable. It might end up being someone else, but prefabricated balconies that get bolted onto the building. Those prefabricated balconies are made out of metal, aluminum and steel. So the bottom side of the balconies have a more finished look to them. You will not, they're not wood, so you will not see wood joists or anything like that walking on the sidewalk and looking up at the underside of the balconies.
Wow, it sounds like you got good advice. Somebody's been to these meetings. I have a site access question.
Yes.
Where the Southern Depot is it the intent that you'll only be able to access those buildings now from further up near Gay Street, or will you be able to go through your site to get to those?
We would no longer have the access that currently exists from Gay Street where you go under the bridge.
Yeah.
That would not exist. So we're as part of this, we're rezoning the site in midstream and that, getting it compliant with DKW, and then we'll also be subdividing the property so that we're segmenting and separating the property from the old rail station. So the only access that we have here will be on the second floor from Depot and on the first floor into the garage with a small loading bay. Just past the tracks.
But right now you access the depot buildings, the railway buildings from your site. So how do you get to those buildings now? I mean, in this scenario, when the building's built.
Oh, I'm sorry. For the historic buildings, those would be accessed still from Gay Street.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
I think that I appreciate the the east-facing ground level retail, but I think I'd like to hear you speak more to and you did somewhat to the activation down, is that Ogden east-west, correct? That right now, the site, you walk down there and you've got Regus and Mill and Mine and everything, and it's a bit separate because they're larger buildings. But of course, the whole time if you're walking east on your south side, it's just vacant. There's nothing because of the depot and then the big hole in the ground that you're contending with currently with the parking. And it seems like what's being offered is going to have a little more activity. I understand you're fighting 1,000 different variables with parking and site access and that sort of thing, but can you speak a little bit more to the thought given to the street activation? Because I think the beauty is that you're stringing together the activity of Central, you're extending it, but every new project as our downtown core, breaks out of whatever our core is anymore, it's definitely extended past what even our guidelines allow us to review. That whole strip east-west of Ogden is such a prime spot to really activate that street.
Yeah.
So it'd be just, since we're talking conceptual big ideas, it'd be great to hear what the thoughts are with the architect.
Sure. Absolutely happy to talk about that. If you wouldn't mind going to the second floor plan, you can get a sense. So Central Street is 167 feet fully activated. It's about 450 feet along depot of the building itself. What we've currently contemplated, and this has changed substantially, we've added much more activation in response to the comments that we originally heard, is approximately 260 feet of activation. So over half that we're activating. The way that we could reconcile the mechanical needs for the non-ventilated garage and having enough breeze through in conjunction with the priorities of the design guidelines was really to try to do something that's a softer scape when we got to the back half. That's why we are setting back 12 feet. That's why we're providing an ability to try to keep those trees, and then more importantly, look to plant as much as possible in screening as opposed to doing any sort of like metal screening at those locations. The other piece that I'll mention is we're intentionally designing the building around what is a very attractive opportunity here in terms of having flat floor plates that could be redeployed and reused in some fashion in the future. That presents an opportunity that if this is the day one install and we find out that there's incredibly off the charts robust retail demand beyond the nearly over 6,700 square feet that we're providing now, or if we needed to expand the lobby or explore additional resident amenities beyond what we're providing in the building, there's the opportunity to transform those tandem spots that exist in the setback today.
Is it going to be I'm assuming it's concrete structure?
Correct. It would be cast in place post-tension.
Mm-hmm. I'll say a comment since we are just talking freely. Like I've never really bought into screening being planting. Just if it is going to be proposed as that's the screening element, then speak to the actual species when it's actually submitted, something that's actually year-round material and not something that, we've seen some really bullshit offerings of just like they've got vine lines that are going to grow up and these vines are going to grow in and screen the whole parking, and that's absurd. And people are also going to pee in it and they're going to, beat it up and all that sort of stuff. So my gut is to see something architecturally as the screening element. You've mentioned the perforated metal panel. I know that's been done, but that's not bad. Like if there's some version of that, it'd be great even to, I know I guess this is the workshop, but I was going to say options for what that could be. But So when you say 270 feet of activation, what is that word? What is the activation? What is it?
To me, the activation is on the first floor as you go from the corner at Central all the way down Depot. You have the frontage of retail that's there, the 3 live work units, which have these massive windows, a ton of fresh light, will be designed and marketed towards people to have artist space, pottery, all kinds of different uses. And then the lobby itself is a very active space. That's where all of the leasing is located. It's sort of the central nervous system of the entire building.
Is that the main entry?
It is the main entry,
so
yes.
There's part of that too. And are you with the developer?
Yes, I
group?
am.
So how often do you see the live-work spaces like legitimately be rented out?
I don't think that that's something that we're proposing it here. It's generating income in our underwriting. We're not afraid of these units. I think they could be very successful. And again, they have a nice characteristic to them where if the live work element isn't playing out and there's the ability to retool those to additional retail, we have the space, we have the clear heights, we have the access.
Right.
The other thing that's unique about these 3 units specifically is that they'll have reserved parking in the back with a dedicated access point from the garage, a small step up, and then you'd have this really cool full height kind of box experience.
Yeah, I've seen there's the project on State Street that's about to be built, MHM and Buzzgoss, and the corner coffee shop. The rest of it's units with stoops, and then it's the live work units, and it's always been the problematic, like the rub of like, how do you make the numbers work? I know with retail at ground level retail, and like, do you actually get businesses in there? And I think there's plenty of businesses we can walk down the street and see that they're not in there. So that's why I'm asking your opinion on the efficacy of live work. So like, I mean, because they could just live, right? They could just put their couch there and not work in it, right?
Sure.
So just be a unit at the street.
I think that's the other, it's a completely reasonable concern. I think the way that we're very hands-on when it comes to asset management and oversight of the management companies that we work with. This would be institutionally managed. We've seen other programs, for example, where it's a partnership with a local artisan and we're actually working with them on the lease and they're producing things for the building themselves.
Yeah.
So everything from like sound engineers, for example, where they're then also providing, I don't know, some sort of podcasting or music programming for the building. So there's a lot of creative partnerships that we would want to explore. We're not afraid of retail. I mean, the deal that we just did in Madison included 19,000 square feet of ground floor retail, and we put in our own.
You should say that to people here in Knoxville, and they hopefully would learn from that.
Well, we're hoping to show that to Knoxville by providing 6,700 square feet and activating the frontage we are. But yeah, it's an art. You know, we don't want to saturate a market. We're studying very closely what the current fundamentals of the retail environment are down here. It is so exciting every trip I come to be able to try a new restaurant, go into more shops, really patron the neighborhood and understand what the heartbeat is, and then figure out how can we craft something and curate something that's going to be quite responsive to that.
Christine, I'd just like to say thanks for bringing a project like this to Knoxville. I think the program is very smart. I like what you've done with the masonry and the elevations. My question isn't about the design, just more out of curiosity, being next to that railroad. What kind of site remediation and abatement are you going to have to do?
Yeah, we're looking right now at really more than anything focusing on how the window systems are going to perform and if we would be upgrading the window systems based on the southern facing units. We did tour Yardley Flats during like a pregame for one of the Smokies games this summer, and the sound attenuation for those windows was really pretty impressive, and they were standard kind of vinyl windows, so it was just surprising. We're just now, as advanced as this set is, we're just mid-SDs at this point and working through contractor selection, but it's certainly on our radar. We don't want a loud building.
Yeah.
And then we're aware that there's a noise abatement movement for the train, a horn abatement effort, and we're very eager to get engaged in that and help lead that in partnership with the community in Norfolk.
Okay. That's a great answer. More specifically, what are you having to do to the ground? Is it a brownfield? Are you having geotechnical issues or?
Yes, so we've completed a phase 1 on the site that confirmed, because of the history of the site, past use of the area, and just the industrial character of the neighborhood, did recommend a phase 2. We're going to proceed with a handful of phase 2 borings to better understand soil composition, contamination risk, and vapor mitigation that would be required. So all of that is in process. And then in terms of the geotechnical, we did have, I want to say 12 geotechnical borings done to a depth of 35 to 45 feet. Those were completed in November. We're reviewing them very carefully. We'll likely go with a caisson foundation system here.
Look forward to seeing this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say I think that you all have done a really good job with this, and it's very thorough, especially for a workshop. I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, here's a blurred out vision of what we're thinking. So thank you for
Mostly
being so,
vibes.
Yeah, mostly vibes. So thank you for being so detailed. When I first moved downtown, I lived just across the street in White Lily, and then now I live over on Jackson. So to the noise piece, just from a resident standpoint, you can't, like the train, you definitely can hear the train. Another thing to consider too is with the Mill and Mine directly across the street, there are sometimes late at night you can hear concerts going on there.
Okay.
So that would be kind of more on that, I guess, the north side of the building to consider, just noise from that side, in addition to what the train produces. I will say, having lived down in that area for about 6 years now, you get used to I've gotten used to the train. I don't really hear it anymore. But
It goes away after a while.
yeah, it goes away after a while. So, but yeah, thank you for a great project.
Thank you. That's really helpful feedback and very mindful. Mill and Mine is a great venue, but they produce sound.
I agree with a lot. Oh, go ahead.
Yep, you go.
Okay. I also echo what everyone said. I think it's a beautiful project for this area. One concern I have with the sound as well is I see that you've done the courtyards facing the railroad, which I think in a lot of ways it helps the neighbors not have to deal with the sound coming from the pool and everything. But I'm curious what it's like from the resident perspective with the railroads going by. It becomes like an echo chamber within those little courtyards. Another thought I had was the live-work units. I personally love the idea of these. I've long thought that Knoxville would be a perfect spot for it, given we're called the Maker City, and there's a lot of artisans that could benefit from these. In order to make them viable, though, I'm curious: is there a way to make them where they could be separated and then also have more glazing, in case it could become just like a small shop for an artist, or an artist could rent or purchase both units stacked. I just worry that we've seen these pop up every now and then, and they usually get taken out eventually.
Yeah. No, those are great suggestions. I think we're still working through the layout right now we're still working through the layout right now for the live work property. It is one level currently contemplated.
Oh, okay.
We kind of played around with,
It's
could
one
we do a
studio
mezzanine?
space. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just a really nice, super tall, very cool, functional layout. We can certainly explore fenestration opportunities. Like right now, I think the door is reading is solid. I think we'd want that to be more of a storefront material, something that's a little bit, provides privacy towards the back of the unit, but then reads as something where it's a shop that people will eventually be able to walk in. So we can still play around with that or find a happy medium with both of them. The thing that's cool about those from an elevation, which we don't have, or a section, is that it's a substantial window at the grade and then an additional clear window.
Yeah.
So it's like it reads really interestingly, but we're certainly in the early stages of design, as I mentioned, and happy to keep thinking about those.
That makes sense. I didn't realize it was one level. That makes me think that it may have a harder time being live work, because I don't know if someone would allow people to come in and use it as it couldn't be a shop that patrons could come into necessarily. So that's just a thought. In order to activate it further, is there a way to separate kind of the shop space from the live space? Yeah.
We'll look forward to sharing some of the floor plans that we've worked up for it, and be sure to address that question specifically on how do you segregate the commercial and the residential component.
Yeah, my main concern is that in order to activate it further, what are strategies?
Like a
to do
second
that?
gen?
Like to have a really small pop-up shop type space that is separate from the live space that would allow people to come in every once in a while and buy things.
Okay, perfect.
What would you say is the front of the? You've been waiting. Let's.
I have a question. I have a compliment and a question. I love what you said about planning ahead for using the parking area for other use later. I've seen that play out in certain projects, and it's a great opportunity when you have flat space that you can absorb into the project. But you also mentioned that that part of the building has a pretty significant offset from the sidewalk. So is there bridging that's supposed to happen there, or access from a different place within the building?
There is. We're basically tying together as you move up. If you go to the go to the elevation that shows the materiality, and you can kind of see it, I think.
On the opposite side?
Go one back.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, on that far right side.
Exactly. But you can see it gets more pronounced when you're just past the building.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of creeps up over the 60-foot property line. You go from basically, we're tying and connecting with the street right at grade at the northeast corner. And then it's moving up, 12 feet is a ton, but over 450 feet, it's very incremental.
Mm-hmm.
This last section of, I want to say 200 feet, is something that is solvable for sure.
Mhm.
We're also set back that 10 to 12 feet from the property line, and
Mhm.
rebuilding the sidewalk there. There's things that we can do to better connect the sidewalk and street experience with the interior of the garage to make sure we're future-proofing appropriately.
I think we'd want to see more detail on that for your submission, just so you
Sure.
understand better how that's supposed to work, because that's a pretty steep situation right now. So when you envision it, it's kind of hard to figure out how that's going to work.
And it is the second level of parking. So most of it's made up underneath.
Yeah.
Got it.
With the parking, is the intent for that to be just for residents, or is that going to be some public, or is it all just for residents of the building?
It's contemplated to be just for residents right now. It's about 285 spots, excluding the tandem spots, for 270 units. And so that 1-to-1 ratio feels pretty good. That's where we want to be.
What would you say the front of the building is?
The front of the building I think what's great about this is that there's a lot of different parties that we can cater to with this building. Obviously, it gets a lot of eyes on it from the south facade for people moving up from Central and just moving up and down Jackson and further up the hill as you move west in the city. So activating that space, introducing green space, that satisfies one audience. Central Street is critical. I think it's the most pedestrian traffic that the area is going to see, and having all the retail there is certainly a front door. But for people that are living in the building and for the staff that's working there, it's going to be on Depot at the lobby entrance.
Yeah,
it's multifaceted.
Yeah. I asked because this will be the third multifamily project that have these inset courtyards. Of course, yours has 3. The other 2 have 1. But the one just adjacent to you all from DIA has that one main central courtyard that faces the street. So they chose to face the street, and yours is facing the back of you're facing the railroad, essentially. And then the parking ban, the parking at the bottom isn't, it's just the strip of concrete. That reads to me like the back, like that's we almost got finished and didn't finish the parking structure at the base. So to everyone's compliments of the thought, I think there's been a lot of good thought, but that's the, I think, piece that gives me a bit of pause is the parking plinths articulation at the base of it. Like if that is a front, like you say, equally to the Depot Street side, that potentially it needs some more care given to it.
Yeah.
What is the pedestrian experience there? Is that private only, or can the public weave their way back there?
That'll be private.
That'll be private. Okay.
And to your comment, I would just also point out the landscape and softscape that we're doing along the rail at the pedestrian level. And then we have additional softscape contemplated right now with a pretty ample dog area.
Yeah, I appreciate it. If
Did I hear you on the parking plinth?
Yeah.
So there's like a yard between the railroad and your building? Like a
Yes.
landscaped yard?
Yes.
Okay.
We are also, the existing train cars that are there, those won't be moving on account of our development anytime soon. The ownership of those will not be with us. So we are designing around that. And then there's a canopy that continues along the southern boundary as well, where we're taking that down to accomplish constructability of the building.
All the way across into the...
Just to the property line.
Just the property.
I like what you did with the canopy on Depot, the way you changed the material and then the shape.
Cool.
I think it does a good job of designating that this is where you come in.
Thank you.
Has there been, I'm getting off into preservation world, but for the Southern Depot building, the historic, is there concern about its status on the National Register and taking down components related to that building?
Not right now. We are set back 60 feet from that building to our building, and then providing the landscape buffer between the two. And then preserving as much parking as possible. You know, the owners that are going to retain ownership, the Dewars team to our west, we don't really have jurisdiction over their parking lot and how they treat that. But we can certainly look into that and make sure that we're crossing all T's.
Suzanne, are you referring to the canopy coming down?
Yeah.
And is the train itself, the train cars, are they included in the registry?
I haven't read the nomination. I just wonder, since this was seen as one complex, one site, and now it's being subdivided, what the implications are of taking certain components down, and if that matters to anybody.
This is more pragmatic, but how are you draining the roof?
Oh gosh, Adam, do you want to step in?
The roofs are going to drain to the rear of the property, so the courtyard side.
So it'll be face-mounted conductor boxes with downspouts, or is it internally drained?
Yes. It'll be face-mounted conductor boxes with downspouts.
So which side? The railroad side?
Yeah.
So that's the back of your building. So that's the fight you're going to have to make, is how do you make that depot face, or the train side, not the butt of the building? I think, yeah, and when you submit this, like, show the downspouts, I think.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Because, again, you brought up Church and Henley. It's an architectural feature, the ridiculousness of those downspouts cascading across the building at 45 degrees for 50 feet and those sort of things. So it's always something that, if it's not considered, it could be pretty terrible.
Cameron, I'm
Yeah,
not.
we've considered where they're going to be located. I've talked to the team about a plan for it. We plan to come just straight down. We're not going to have any 45-degree angles for 50 linear feet or anything like that. So we'll be strategic with where they're placed. We'll pick a material that's in keeping with the material of the facade so that they kind of blend in.
Just to clarify the question about the National Register nomination, so both part of this property is within the Southern Terminal Warehouse National Register District, so that doesn't require them to do anything in particular just by being listed on the registry, unless they had like federal funds coming in. There's no historic zoning on the property that would require them to do anything. So just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
Was your concern that was going to read as the back of the building?
No, I was really bringing up the fact that some of these multifamily projects think the courtyard should face the street, and this one intentionally doesn't face the street. So I just wanted to hear their thoughts as the design and development team, how they're envisioning that. That's why.
I appreciate that it's not, that those courtyards aren't just encircled by the entire building. I like that it faces south. You know, you'll get really nice morning light that way. You know, it being by the train tracks, I mean, it's not the most ideal, but I do like how it is open to the south. And all those residents will have very nice light in the morning.
Well, I also think that it's better to have a true dense urban front on the streets that you can have it, rather than kind of degrading that edge with the courtyards. I think this is a better urban solution.
And this is so Mark's sitting in the crowd. Mark, you and David are going to keep ownership of this project once it's built, you said? No.
We'll be the owners.
You'll be the owner. Well, I think back to the discussion about materiality, and of course, you guys have done a great job with mixing the two, and I know there's price points for materials and that sort of thing, but like you being excited about this development, I mean, buying into the like this is the new age of Knoxville, and we will now be known as the brick and fiber cement building. And I know that's everywhere. That's Nashville. That's every city that's just exploding. Advocate for why that material is the right choice for you've got material A, which is brick, and material B, which is fiber cement. Why is material B fiber cement and not a metal panel or some other reason? And why is that contextual to Knoxville?
Adam, do you want to weigh in a little bit on the character of the building? I mean, as a developer, I can tell you, you're absolutely right when it comes to we're underwriting a sizable investment here, durability, the institutional component of attracting investment. All of these things are really important.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very heavily used material, and it can be used really poorly and result in an egregious design, or it can be used really thoughtfully, which was what we've tried to do here with an appropriate amount of masonry, complemented by strategic, complementary, minimum material changes, thoughtful application. That's how we approach it. Adam, anything to add?
We're trying to break the massing down with the brick and, have a clear delineation there. I think, the argument is if this is an all brick building, that doesn't necessarily make it better. I think having a variety, in this case, 2 materials, but then material B using, more than just one color brings some liveliness to the facade and some interest. One of the things that's important to a lot of these buildings, as you know, like with wood frame structures, it's hard to get depth on the building facade. With brick, the brick is obviously going to be proud of the fiber cement, several inches, 2 to 3 inches. That helps create the shadow lines that we're trying to get as well.
And I'd also say the application of the brick really, again, coming back to the pedestrian experience. What do people see and experience as they're moving along the building, and being really mindful of the materials that we're using there? Mm-hmm. Having the water table that's brick, the planters that are brick, 2 stories of pretty consistent brick throughout the building was of utmost importance. Mm-hmm. And then as you step back and you continue to move up 5 stories, how you're treating the rest of the building. So it still hangs together really well. You're applying brick the full 5 stories where it strategically looks really beautiful and enhances the overall design and experience, and complementing it with other materials as needed.
Adam, if you weren't allowed by our city to use fiber cement, what would you use for material B?
A metal panel.
Okay.
It'd probably be some type of corrugated metal panel, but not like half circle. It would be something that would have some variety in how it's treating that, so that we get some depth. So there's different panels that you can get that are bent almost at 90 degrees, and they have different widths, right? So it would be a vertical configuration. It would something that would look very architectural and purposeful, but also get some additional depth to the facade.
Well, you sold me on it. It'd be great to see that.
I think the problem is right now we're not allowed to use sheet material like that.
But we can, as the design review board, it always has that caveat to. Anyway, it's
Well,
that was an that was a good answer. I mean, I wasn't saying that as like a catchy. We just had that discussion of like materiality in Knoxville, and I just wanted to hear y'all's thoughts. And as you started with, you guys have been essentially researching as you've been coming in for the past 9 months and observing. It's now starting to be, these are the precedents that people coming in are looking at and saying, oh, well, they've done it there, so we're going to do that too.
Well, and I do think that the detailing is extremely important. And even though we're looking at the project overall, the texture and striation and colors and all of that looks really nice. But if it's executed poorly, it's a disaster. And so as architects on the board and the people that care about durability, along with you've mentioned that, and patina over time, I really appreciate how you've talked about the longevity of the building. That's really important. But also seeing how those details go together really specifically puts us in a position of a lot more comfort and
For sure.
confidence
Yeah.
approving the project.
The last thing we want to do as an owner and investor is create something that is going to be a precedent for what not to do in the future. And everybody wants something that we can stand behind very proudly, not just for us, but for the community and ultimately our residents who are going to call the place home.
I just had 2 quick points, and I don't want to take any more time. But I think 2 things that I think would go a long way is think about the depth that you're trying to exhibit with the fiber cement. If you do go with that, I think we've seen a lot of projects that look very just single pane fiber cement that they just look like literally a box with wallpaper on it. If you do go this route, you try to add as much depth as you can between the materials and planes, because I think it's a very thoughtful way that it's been composed. It looks almost like a layered kind of building. And then the last thought is where your garage meets the street, that material that comes down to the sidewalk, you'll need to pay a lot of attention to that.
It's pretty sneaky.
Great.
Yeah, because the landscaping, it helps, but at the end of the day, the landscaping may die, and what are we going to be stuck with?
Right.
I'd be curious, do you continue to own and operate many or most of the projects you develop?
Yeah, it's
Across
a
the country?
range. It's a range. It always is. We certainly intend to own this one for a while.
The reason I ask is, this fiber cement metal panel debate, and I'm newer on the board, but I can tell it's a continuing conversation that, we're looking at from a guideline perspective. But from what I understand, the metal panel has more longevity, easier to maintain, looks nicer over time without active maintenance. Whereas the fiber cement, if you want to keep it looking nice, does require more cleaning, repainting, whatever needs to be done. So I'm curious if you guys have studied that much in terms of, since you're actually in a position to compare initial cost versus life cycle. Has that been a discussion corporately?
It hasn't. Can certainly look. I can say from buildings that I've been involved with since 2013 and the application of a hardy panel there hasn't been massive deterioration. That's not to say, I'm limited set, but we can certainly provide some data on that.
Yeah, and I think cleanliness is kind of the thing, it looks dingy over time, right?
Yeah, I think the
If
problem
not repainted.
is detailing is one of the issues.
Color.
True.
Color is another issue, and we are in a downtown center, so there is a lot of interstate soot and debris and things like that attach themselves to buildings close by. And to be totally honest, not everybody is a good building owner and maintain their buildings and keep them clean, and so they look like garbage after a while. And in a old city that has a lot of materials that patina appropriately, that doesn't matter as much because they just get more beautiful over time and more interesting, but fiber cement does not get more beautiful and interesting over time. So you have to make it look fresh over and over again. So I think that's the concern, or speaking for myself, that's my concern.
Well, you guys, how many states have you all developed in, across the country?
Oh gosh. I can send you some information
No,
right now.
that wasn't
no,
hard and fast. You could say a lot. That's okay.
It's our team
I didn't need to
has a
actually know
range
a
of
full number.
experience.
Yeah.
No problem at all. So I've worked on projects from California to the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic. Seth, the CEO of Quad, is worked at range as well, coast to coast, international. And then Quad ourselves, we, for the past 5 years, have been in the jurisdictions that we just mentioned, the Charlottesville, the Boulder, the Madison, Wisconsin, Ann Arbor, and then, of course, here in Knoxville today. So certainly have had the pleasure of working in a lot of places, a lot of different jurisdictions, and had, different standards imposed across those, and delivered different product that's relevant for the market in each of those. The one thing that has been a mainstay is they've always been institutional quality projects. This isn't something where it's, capitalized in a way that is people looking to make a quick buck. This is something where it's really designed and intended to be operated as a Class A asset that is from inside with how the management team runs the day-to-day operations to the very details of fenestration. So it's a responsibility when you're contributing to the built environment that we take very seriously. I take very seriously. I know Seth does as well, and our whole team does. And happy to, dig into this.
Well, I was just going to say, of all those cities and states you've worked in, how does Knoxville's guidelines compare? As stringent or not?
It's all just completely relative, truly. And like working in so many different cities and suburbs, everybody has their own particular issue. It's almost 100% hardy if you look at the lower left. I'd call that a very elegant project, perfectly in character with the environment that it is in Charlottesville. It's open breezeways, 3-story walk up. That's what that community wants. We want to deliver something that's going to be successful for the community, and that's beautiful. It just depends on where we are.
I'll second Cameron's sentiment from earlier about the parking garage facing the old city under the courtyard. That did seem like, as thoughtful as all the elevations are, they have there's a lot of verticality, there's some square proportions, but that is just so different with no like transition. So when you come back, I think it would be interesting to see that articulated a little bit differently.
Sure.
Right now, it kind of looks like your development sitting on top of the city county building.
Perfect.
With slabs below.
Would there be a resident entrance on that side of the building as well?
There'd be a handful of egress doors, but not a intentional entrance outside of the garage area and a man door. And we do have loading, but the day in, day out activity would be off of Depot.
Okay, because I could see from a resident perspective, if you're say you're going to the bars and like down Central, or you're going to grab coffee up the street or whatever it might be, a lot of people wanting to exit out that side of the building. So that would be something to maybe consider as well.
Okay, perfect. If you go back one slide, you can just get a better idea of how, we're loading and everything. There's access. It's not the main entry, but we can definitely study how to make sure that it's ease of entering the building for our guys that are coming in, day out.
Okay, we're at 6:38, so let's have some closing statements if we have any, I think, unless you have specific questions for us. No. Okay. Anything? Thank you all. It really is a beautiful building. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate the feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.